Hey everybody, my name is Russell Frost from What Drives Us, and this is my Prius Prime review. In the modern era, we tend to eschew ritual. It's time-consuming, according to some, and a complete waste of time, according to others. Me, I've always enjoyed it. Whether it's winding my watch each morning or plugging in a car at the end of the day, it's a ritual that brings me closer to the machines that I use. I don't see ritual as a burden. That said, living with a Prius Prime, a plug-in hybrid in an apartment without a single dedicated vehicle charging spot might be a bit more than the term ritual could cover. Here's how it went and what I think of the Prime in general. Plugging in without a dedicated charger can be a pain in the ass. It takes luck, which none of us can generate at will. In my case, the luck was huge. There happened to be an open 110 outlet across from a sidewalk, across from a parking place. With the approval of my apartment management, I was able to use that outlet and plug in to charge my Prime, assuming I could get that space, which meant some jockeying around of vehicles to block the space when the Prime wasn't in it. It meant using one of the household carpets and 2 orange cones borrowed from the same complex owners to reduce the hazard of a cord crossing a sidewalk. If I'd been living in my previous home, a townhouse in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, there's no way I could have pulled that off. I would have had to either park the vehicle someplace else to charge it or just charge it at public facilities. This is doable, but let's be realistic. It's far less than ideal. I can't charge at my job. There's just no way to do it. So that option is out. For some, that might be the saving grace. I found charging stations, even here in Central Florida, there are a few, but they're not free. Some are, but not all by any means. And it meant careful planning or in some cases, sadly, just wasting my time. So that's the one big nightmare for many potential plug-in hybrid owners. Is it even reasonable to buy one of these because I live in a place where there are no dedicated charging spots? If you live in a single-family home with access to power or I'm charging at work, the argument against the Prime tends to dissipate very quickly, but it can be done. I did it for a week, and I drove over 100 fully electric miles, over 200 miles total. So is the Prime a good plug-in? The 2017 Prius Prime has 25 miles of EPA-rated EV range. In several test trips during my week with the vehicle, I managed to exceed that without a major inconvenience. But in general, 25 miles is the range most people can easily see. The Chevy Volt has more range. It does, slightly more than double the range of the Prime. And like the Prime, the Volt has onboard facilities for extending that range far beyond its dedicated electric vehicle range. The Volt, however, accomplishes this in a completely different manner than the Prius Prime. The Volt's gas motors are basically generators for driving the vehicle beyond its plug-in range. The Prius Prime, when emptied of its plug-in electric vehicle range, reverts to being a 4th-generation Prius. This is where your daily driving scenario comes into play in a big way. The next few conclusions assume you cannot charge at your destination. If your daily drive exceeds 25 miles but is not more than 53, the Volt may be a better answer for you. If your daily drive doesn't exceed that and you like to take long road trips, the Prius Prime may be the ideal solution for you. I'm not going to spend more time in a head-to-head comparison of the two vehicles outside of the issues above. I think a lot of it is a matter of choice, and I happen to think a great deal of both the Prius Prime and the Chevy Volt. Either is an excellent choice, and if you buy either one of those cars, you win. Back to the Prime. The amazing thing about the Prime is that it exists. Toyota wanted to style their next generation of plug-in hybrid in a way that made sure it was distinctive from the current standard Prius. Prime is significantly different from its 4th generation sibling, and it's a big difference. The curved rear windshield, the LED light array are two of the most notable, but the interior is a wholly different thing as well. Add in an 11.6-inch touchscreen on the upper two models and a carbon fiber hatch, and you've got a vehicle that is significantly different from the brand new 4th generation Toyota Prius. All in all, it's unavoidable to miss the idea that Toyota wanted this car to be different from that brand new 4th generation Prius, and it is. All of this makes a great deal of sense, and also, at least for me, gets me wondering if this new Prime isn't in fact a preview of the whole new generation of Prius. There are a couple things holding Prime back from easily taking that mantle. One is interior space. The Prius Prime is smaller than the new 4th generation Prius. It seats 4 in bucket seats rather than the rear bench seat of the 4G Prius, which seats 5. The rear hatch cargo capacity is significantly smaller. I don't think it's a deal breaker, but it's certainly there. And while I carried a lot of stuff from firewood to construction supplies in my older Priuses, the Prime won't be as handy in that manner. The battery packs and the design just preclude that. So if you have to have, and I want to stress this, if you have to have a 5-passenger vehicle that has a large storage volume in the hatch, the Prime is probably not the answer. I would suggest looking towards the 4G Prius or reevaluating your needs. If not, and I think this fits the majority of potential owners more, the Prius Prime is fine. The Prius Prime isn't cheap. It starts at about $27,000, and the model you'll see in the review that I drove is one of the advanced models. It runs about $33,000. Not that Priuses are cheap in general, and you may qualify for a nice bit of savings depending on the state or province in which you reside. Still in all this safety, luxury, and efficiency comes at a price. Another thing holding back the Prius Prime in the sense of being the car, the technology car, the efficiency car, is something that has not been true, at least as much in the past as it is now. But it's competition. The Prime is an amazing vehicle by any measure. It does what it does, arguably better than anything else. But the big problem is it's in a weird category, mostly by itself now, and the other categories have supplanted the one that Prius occupies. The new Chevy Volt offers seating for 5, especially if one of them is very, very small. And as I mentioned before, double the EV range. The new Nissan Leaf has expanded its range and continued to grow an audience of loyal owners. Elon Musk, for what this is worth, claims the new Tesla Model 3 will come out at $34,999, and it will make it to market this year in 2017 and be produced in large numbers. Hyundai has a trio of competitors, all called Ioniq. There will be more. So the venue where the Prius is not only dominant, but mostly alone in the market, that's gone forever. This doesn't diminish in any way Toyota's accomplishments in the Prius Prime, but it does place them in context. So let's talk about what is good and what isn't so good about the Prime before I get into what it's like to live with it in my situation. Good. The new touchscreen. The new panel is much closer to a real touchscreen than ever before. It's large, but I don't know that Toyota's software has taken advantage of that added real estate very well, which is a damn shame. Bad. The new touchscreen. It means things like volume knobs are gone, so you have to look at a touch-sensitive panel or a capacitance area on the central console to change anything, which does take your attention away from the road. Good. The EV range is rock solid. Everyone should see 25 miles of that EV range, maybe a little more. Bad. And this is subjective, but it's the interior. I'm still out on the interior. It reminds me too much of an NCAA football uniform. The Stormtrooper pearl plastic accents are, well, novel. There are other details in the interior that are kind of odd. A trim ring that doesn't actually match the exterior paint, but matches the package that the Prius is, which is odd to me. Good. The motorized front driver's seat is cool. Bad. The rear seats feel stiff and unyielding. Good. Driving in EV mode is fun. Bad. This car is weight sensitive. This car performs just fine with a full complement of people, but I would be remiss in not addressing the very noticeable difference in performance and handling. Good. The new Prime delivers on a smooth driving experience Prius has always offered. It's nimble enough with a tight turning circle for urban environments, and it's a nice highway cruiser. Bad. The carbon fiber hatch created by Toyota to reduce the weight of Prius is a cool idea, but it adds a lot to the price, and let's face it, carry one of your pets or buy an extra bag or two of groceries, and you've already canceled out that weight savings. And do I even need to mention the electric motors on the fully adjustable driver's seat? Bad. In tune. Good. Safety sense. Toyota safety sense, amazing. Bad. Your touchscreen rebooting because it can't connect to your phone. I had my touchscreen reboot several times, 3 times during the week that I had the car, and I understand this is an issue that they're dealing with, or at least that owners are dealing with, and it's frustrating. It's very frustrating. So what is it like to live with the Prius Prime? If you own a home or rent a single-family dwelling with a driveway, it's simple. Plugging in the car is easy, and charging is beyond reasonable. The Prime charges from 0 to full in a tad more than 6 hours on a standard 110 home outlet. Faster, of course, on a higher voltage one. I don't see 6 hours as being onerous when charging at home. That said, if like millions of other Americans, like me, you live in a rented space or an apartment or urban housing like my former resident, a century-and-a-half-old row home in a historic downtown area, charging becomes more of a challenge. It's just not possible to charge at home. You have to do more advanced thinking. I was able to charge at my apartment because the owners were kind enough to give me permission to use an exterior outlet, which only due to dumb luck on my part was located close to my apartment. Maybe you're this lucky, maybe not. Charging at charging stations is simple. In some cases, level 2 charging is free, and it's not unreasonable to add a decent amount of range while shopping or visiting. I've done this, and it was a wonderful bonus. Charging at work for me wasn't possible, as I mentioned before. Management at work was supported, but there's no exterior outlet, and you can't charge with an extension cord, so no charging at work. I think for many of us non-homeowning folk, charging at work might be the simplest, again, and I hate to say this, solution, depending on your luck. I spent a week with the Prime, and running out of EV range was never really a problem. I managed to charge at my apartment or when visiting some locations, even here in deepest, darkest Florida, not exactly home to EV charging infrastructure. I think for most of you, charging, once you have some time to think about it and plan a few very simple contingencies, will be simple, if not always easy. In the end, I think it would work, owning this Prime and living in a place where you don't own a garage or a driveway and can't provide electricity to the vehicle easily. You have 2 things going for you. The Prime can charge in a reasonable amount of time on 110, and the Prime is still a super efficient vehicle when it's not charged with EV range. In this sense, the Prime is one of the best, if not the best, all-around solutions for people who want an EV but also want flexibility and range. In the end, Prime raises as many questions for me as it answers. I still wonder if Prime is competitive in the current market, and I know it's a strong competitor by any measure. I wonder if the Prime is in fact the next generation Prius, or is it just what the plug-in Prius has always been, a nice offshoot of the most popular hybrid on the planet? The Prime is an interesting trial balloon for Toyota, who has historically avoided electrification as much as possible. I hope it gives them the answers that will send Toyota down the path to more plug-ins, more EVs, and what many of us see as the next logical step in cars. This week has proved to me that those of us who dwell in apartments can make it work with a plug-in, but it's also up to cities, property owners, employers, to help make owning a plug-in or an EV more realistic for those of us who don't own a garage or a driveway. I'm not one of those people who will rate the Prius Prime on a scale of 1 to 10 or evaluate its performance with tiny pictographs symbolizing victory or defeat. I think that, like the evolution of the entire Prius line, Toyota has once again made a vehicle that is better than its predecessors while still being a creation of mortals. Like every vehicle on the road, it has issues, but overall, Prius Prime is solidly built, fun to drive, And for many people, it's going to allow them to travel more economically and more environmentally consciously than any car they've ever owned before. In EV mode, it's a hell of a lot of fun to drive. There is competition, a lot of it, and from other vehicles that have a vastly different skill set. In a sense, what some people view as Prime's weaknesses are also points that appeal to others. I don't think Toyota consciously built a niche vehicle, but I am sure that they perceive that it is one given their overall coyness about EVs. So in that way, it's a step forward and a step backward for one of the world's largest automakers who has long wanted Prius to be the mainstream car for everyone. In compromising some of the specs of the Prime, they may have weakened their own offering. It's really up to each and every individual buyer to decide what works best for them. Is this the Prime fit for you? I'm Russell Frost for What Drives Us. This has been my Prius Prime review. Thanks very much for watching. Don't forget you can visit me, watch all of our weekly shows and other special reviews just like this at whatdrives.us.